Yo, what's going on, guys? We have the meta snapshot for patch 11.6. There are a lot of changes to this sheet because there are a couple new comps discovered, a couple things got nerfed. A lot of things are still very playable. They're pretty much, you could go for anything as long as you get the right chosens for it. As with most of the patches this set, it's like the flexible players being rewarded the most in my opinion. There's also like some cool strategies such as like a fortune start, but Fortune, you could go into pretty much anything after that too. But I'm going to be releasing some Fortune videos sometime this week to show you guys how to play that new build. And without further ado, let's just get right into the list. So in S tier, starting off with that, we have Slayers, Kale, Keepers, and Mages. I feel like these are the strongest compositions because Slayers, Kale, and Mages, they're just like the 4-cost big bomb carries. Keepers, it's like a free top 4 pretty much whenever you get a chosen Keeper with GA, Morello, Kennen. In most cases, it's like even like a free top 3 in that case. It's hard to win with this comp, but it's super good for getting those top 4s. After that, A tier, Brawler Shibana, they did get a couple of buffs, and I think it's actually pretty good because getting 3-star Shyvana, it's always hit really hard. It was just kind of outshined by some of the Tristanas from the last patch, but now that Tristana's not being played as much, this Brawler Shibana comp is really good. Vanguard Mystic, same deal there. It's like, it's always going to be in a weird spot. So last patch, there were a lot of like minor meta adjustments. So everyone was playing Aatrox Sejuani, so everyone was building Last Whisper. And then this comp started to suck. But then once people were building Last Whisper, people stopped playing Vanguards. And then people stopped building Last Whisper. And now we're kind of in the stage where people are not building Last Whisper as much as they have in the past. And so that's why I think this comp is good. But if you're ever going to try to play this Vanguard Mystic comp, be sure to scout everyone. And if there's like more than one Last Whisper in your lobby, like don't go for the comp, obviously. But if there aren't, then go ahead and build it because people are either building like Hand of Justice or Last Whisper for their damage item and like Slayers and Sharpshooters and all those types of comps. And if they just don't have the Last Whisper, this comp's obviously going to be really good. After that, we have Talon. Talon got a couple of buffs. I think he's pretty good. He's pretty playable. He's not like as good as the other A tiers right now, but if you get a good start for this, again, the meta is so flexible that like pretty much the tiers don't really exist that much. They're not as defined as they were in previous sets because if you get the right chosen, you're going to be doing well on that composition, and it doesn't really matter what happened before that or after that. Next up, we have Duelist. Duelist, chosen Yasuo. Again, if you get it early, go for it. Lee Sin's really strong right now. If you get like a blue buff Lee Sin late game or a RFC with blue buff Lee Sin late game, he's going to be kicking everyone off the board. He's not going to be doing like massive damage, but when he kicks off like a 2-star Swain or a 2-star set off the board, you're going to be glad that you had him. Onto the B tier Dragonsoul. Dragonsoul's just another Olaf build. It's just slightly weird. This one also uses like Aurelion Soul, so it's like a lot of different pieces that you need, but I feel like the comp is a little contested because a lot of people are going for the 7 Mage build. A lot of people are going for Slayer builds. There isn't too much room to get all the Dragonsoul units, and if you are going to go for one of those 4-cost carries, I'd rather go one of the S tier comps up here instead. After that, Spirit Sharpshooters, they did take a hit, but I still think they're playable. I explained this before. When fewer people are going for it, the comp gets stronger. So when the comp was just discovered before, yeah, it was going to be the best comp because it was super strong and no one was playing it. But then afterwards, everyone started playing it, and then it's not strong anymore. However, after the nerfs, fewer people are playing it, so you could go for it. It's not going to be as strong as like the last patch, but it's going to be pretty good because no one's going for it except for you. So if you are going to go for the Spirit Sharpshooter composition, just make sure that you are the only person doing it. After that, we have regular Sharpshooters. That's what Sivir carry. Cultists. I still think Cultists are really good if you're like below Challenger or if you are playing on a very aggressive server. For example, in Korea, Cultists are being played like very often in high Challenger, and that's just because they're a lot more aggressive than other regions. Warlords, good if you get the right chosens. Mage Elderwood, I try to not play this as much because if I'm going for Aurelion Soul, I'd rather go for the 7 Mages or the Dragonsoul version. After that, Assassins, Akali carry. If you get it, you get it. If not, like, never touch this comp. And then C tiers, don't play these. Zed did get buffed a little bit. I saw some people experimented with it a little bit, but I'm not really convinced that it's going to be something that you should try to go for unless it's like a dire situation. For example, if you are lose streaking and all of a sudden you hit a Zed chosen and you have like one Zed on your bench already, maybe you could try to go for it because you are already lose streaking and you're trying to make the best of a bad situation, for example. Then I might go for this. Reroll Diana, forget about it, and reroll Nasus, forget about that as well. So on to how to play each and every one of these compositions. Again, you guys can find all this information on my website at bunnymuffins.lol/meta. And if you guys are new, go ahead, subscribe down below. And if you guys learned something from this video, go ahead, hit the like as well. But let's get into all these other compositions. So first up, we have Slayers. Many different variations of this. I have the 6 Slayer version up right now. 3 Slayer is also really good if you don't get Slayer chosen. When you do 3 Slayer, you run stuff like Dragonsoul, so you could add Swain, you could add random legendary units, you could add in a Duelist for your Tryndamere with Lee Sin. All those versions are really, really strong. It just depends on who you are facing and if you are able to hit a lot of the legendaries. After that, an item that is very underrated right now is Bloodthirster. Bloodthirster on either Olaf or Tryndamere actually slaps so hard. It's actually insane. It's like having Hand of Justice. So it's like Hand of Justice gives both damage and healing depending on which roll you hit. 50% of the time, it works every time. If you get the healing one, it's pretty much a Bloodthirster. If you get the damage one, it's pretty much either a Last Whisper or an Infinity Edge. So both of them work really well. And yeah, if you do get a sword and a Negatron, just build the Bloodthirster when you go this composition. You'll be very surprised by how well it does because no one really built Bloodthirster this entire set. But definitely give it a try. It's definitely one of the better items on Tryndamere and Olaf. After that, Samira is kind of like your late game win condition. You could go like one defensive item, either GA or Quicksilver, and then Last Whisper or any damage item is gonna work on her. Like Deathblade, Last Whisper, Infinity Edge, like Hand of Justice, like they're all good on Samira. What I try to do when I build this composition, I tend to put more of the attack speed items on Olaf and then the AD items on Tryndamere. And then when I get Samira, I kind of sell whoever's items fit better on Samira after that. RFC is another good item on Samira because the range is absolutely insane on her. So there are a ton of different options. Obviously in the late game, you obviously don't get a choice of which items you get, but one thing to note about the itemization, I like Last Whisper on Tryndamere a little more because after he dashes to the backline, for example, he's going to apply Last Whisper to all the people in the front who Olaf is attacking, and he's still going to apply Last Whisper to whoever he's attacking in the backline. So that's why I like Last Whisper on Tryndamere more than Olaf. Olaf does have the cone, so it's not bad on him either. You could also have multiple Last Whispers. It's all good from there. Go on to the next comp, we have Executioner Kale. Notice how we do not run Vanguards in this version because everyone's building Last Whisper. However, if they are not, you could take out the Adepts, put in Sejuani and Aatrox, you're going to do really well too. Another reason why people are running this version instead of the Vanguard version is because you can fit Lee Sin in a lot easier because you could get to 4 Divine, but you could still fit him in. You don't have to run Xayah. Xayah's kind of like an extra unit. Obviously, Executioner Chosen's the best, but you could take really any Chosen. It doesn't really matter. You just need 2-star units of everyone to really shine with this composition. One thing to keep in mind, a lot of people go Kale, but they don't get enough of the support items. Kale needs like Zeke's Herald and Chalice of Power in order to get really, really strong. And the reason behind that is because if you build a lot of like utility items or like supportish items on Kale, such as Quicksilver or Rapid Fire Cannon, like she's not gonna actually do that much damage. Like Guardian Angel is another example. So if you do end up building a lot of those items, for example, we have 2 like supportish items here with the Rapid Fire Cannon and the Quicksilver, you really want to have at least 2 support items which are Zeke's Herald or Chalice of Harmony if you do have like 2 of these items there. If not, I'd much prefer to have full damage Kale and put her more in the front line, kind of like where Xayah is right now, just because she'll be able to pump out the same amount of damage with like a Hand of Justice or a Jeweled Gauntlet if she's in the front line. She's just like a little less safe. So it's like a trade-off. You just have to make sure that you mix and match it in every game that you play. So on to the next build, we have Keeper Kennen. Oh yeah, and like on my website, we have a lot of guides on each of these compositions. So go ahead and check that out as well if you want like even more information than what I'm going into right now. On to the next build, Keeper Kennen. It's just free top 4. There's not much else to say there, you know? You get Kennen 2-star with GA Morello. He's going to carry you throughout all of Stage 3 and all of Stage 4. You'll probably lose like 1 or 2 matches during that whole time, if that. After that, if you get an early Ornn, you could really play for late game, and that's really how you get first place with this composition. It's not Azir, it's not Set, it's really Ornn that really solidifies that first place for you, because he's going to give this comp the late game that it desperately lacks. After that, you could play random legendaries. I like Set the most, because he's just a very good standalone damage unit. He doesn't need any supporting synergies to really work well, whereas Samira, she needs other Slayers, she needs like a Sharpshooter to really shine, but Set, he could just be alone, and he's going to deal tons of damage. That's why he's my choice for like random legendary in this composition. Next up is a Mage Build. I already have someone making a guide for this on how to really play it in depth, and essentially you just need Aurelion Soul 2-star. Even 1-star is fine if you have enough Chalice of Powers. Like if you have like 2 Chalice of Powers, you could get away with 1-star Aurelion Soul with a Jeweled Gauntlet, but after you have a Guardian Angel on him, he just kind of one-shots everything, and then he dies, respawns from Guardian Angel, one-shots everything again, whoever's left over from before, and it's just really, really strong because 7 Mages gives a lot of damage, and Aurelion Soul just like, he cleans up everything. It's just absolutely ridiculous. If you haven't played this comp yet, I really recommend doing so. It is a little contested now because a lot of people have figured out that it's good already, but despite all that, if you do get chosen mage, I highly, highly recommend trying this out. And you top this all off with a mage cap on Swain. He's just going to get infinite health. You put a Warmogs on Swain. It turns like one of the worst items into one of the best items in Warmogs because Swain just gets like quadrillion health and it's completely nuts. On to the next build, we have A tiers Brawler Shibana. So this comp got buffed because Cho'Gath got buffed a little bit. Also, a lot of other comps got a little weaker, so Shyvana does have more time to shine now. I really like Hand of Justice on her because she just heals a lot from both attack damage and from her spell. So building stuff like Gunblade or Bloodthirster doesn't really do the same on her. So that's why Hand of Justice is the best item on her, in my opinion, because it gives both damage and healing, and she's kind of like mix of everything. Other than that, Runons is still going to be the best item on her because it applies her spell on the Runons auto, and that just essentially doubles her damage almost. If you do get a 3-star Nunu's a great way to win the late game because he'll just eat whoever the strong legendary is on the other team. If they have like a 3-star Kennen on the other team, Nunu can just eat the first part of the Guardian Angel. If they have like a 2-star set out there, Nunu just eats the first part of their death timer as well. Essentially, any huge guy in the front line, Nunu's just going to eat them, and he's going to keep doing it throughout the fight. And I think he's actually like a pretty good carry in the meta right now because there are a lot of people focused on like one or two big dudes like Olaf and Tryndamere. He'll just eat them as well. It doesn't matter how much they sustain because if he does 100% of their health, like the sustain, they don't have time to sustain, you know? So it's really fun to try. And then Shyvana's obviously the cleanup, killing everything else. But Nunu, in terms of single target damage, is absolutely nuts. Onto the Fabled Vanguard Mystic build. As I said before, you need a scout before you play this. If there are a lot of Last Whispers, you just can't do it because they're going to destroy your team. So with this build, scouting's probably the most important thing. It doesn't really matter what items you have, what champions you have. If people have Last Whisper, you cannot go for this composition. However, if they don't, just play it and then you'll do pretty well. Onto the next build, we have Enlightened Talent. So Talon, he's kind of like, he got a lot of buffs, so I actually really like him now. He could also use a lot of different items, whereas before he really needed like perfect items to really shine. But the most important item, ironically, is like Morellonomicon on Morgana. She's going to be like another big carry of this composition because she'll clean everything up and make sure that after Talon kills his first couple of targets, he can just one-tap everyone else because they're already at half health from Morgana with the Morello proccing on them. So it's kind of like a great synergy there. After that, you cap this off with Yone for your late game. You could also do Lee Sin if you want to play some Divines over the Nasus because Siphoner, it's good, but it's not like that important. And one thing to note, like I don't have any Chosens listed out here, so you could literally go for any Chosen because this comp is just really flexible in terms of whatever Chosen they get. So I do think if people like really master this comp, it could be like one-trickable, even though it's not that strong because it did get a couple of buffs. But because outside of the items, other than Morellonomicon and like sword items or Talon, it is actually pretty flexible in terms of the champions and the Chosen. So you could play it in a lot of games, which can't be said for a lot of other comps, such as this Duelist comp. Duelist, you can really only play it if you get like Yasuo Chosens early and a lot of Yasuos. But after that, it's like, you just can't really play the composition. It's really good because you could run Tryndamere carry later on, and you could put in some Slayers if you do get him really strong. And then Lee Sin, obviously really good late game. Yone, really good late game because he has armor and magic resist shred. So you do have a lot of late game bombs here. So if you do get an early Yasuo 3-star, he just carries you through stage 3 and stage 4, allows you to get to level 8, allows you to get to level 9, roll down for the legendaries, 2-star all of them, and that's how they normally win their games. Onto the B tier. B tier, it's like you could play these, but only go for them if you get like extremely, extremely good starts with them. Dragonsoul is the first comp we're going to go over. Again, it's like it runs the same Asoul from the Mages build, but it's like, why don't you just play the Mage build instead of the Dragonsoul build? Because it's just like a better build. So I try not to play Dragonsoul that much unless I get like Dragonsoul Spatula and like Chosen Dragonsoul of someone else. Onto the next build, we have Spirit Sharpshooter. This build took a huge hit but it's still good because, as again I said before, like the fewer people playing this, the better it is. I'm gonna guess that within this next week, no one's gonna be playing this composition anymore. So then you could just play it after that. That's my guess at least. Let's see if it comes true. It's the same playstyle as before. You just build a ton of the supportish items. So Zeke's Herald, Locket of the Iron Solari, and then like just Quicksilver on Tristana plus 2 damage items. I'm liking Hodge the most right now because, again, a lot of people are not playing Vanguards anymore, so you don't need the Last Whisper. If they do start building Vanguards again, like, yeah, slap on the Last Whisper, of course, but until then, keep the Hand of Justices there. And again, people are realizing that this comp is not as strong as they thought it was. I felt like this comp got nerfed unnecessarily a bunch, and combine all that together, I have a prediction that next week, no one's going to be playing this, and then you can just start playing this and do pretty well because you're going to be uncontested. Now, onto the next build, Sharpshooter Vanguards. This is just the Sivir build, and with 3-star Sivir. It's still decent. It's just hard to get Sivir because, like, when everyone's playing this build up here, they're stealing all your Sivir, so it's just really hard to pull this off. But again, once people stop playing the other comp, this comp should be doing a little better. Onto Cultists now. Like, you guys heard this story before. I'm going to sound like a broken record here. If you're playing against people who do not have the ability to go to late game really effectively, 9 Cultists is going to smash all of them. Because it's like a stat check. It's like, are you as strong as this 9 Cultist Galio? Yes or no? And a lot of times the answer is no. So this comp is actually pretty good if you get a lot of Cultist units. If you get like 3-star Callista, 3-star Sivir, 3 stars of some of the lower cost units as well in the early game, if you get like a free one without rolling for it, this comp's going to be doing pretty well with the Cultist chosen, of course. And yeah, it's just like a decent top 4 comp. Keepers are a better top 4 comp in my opinion, but we can't always get Keepers. So if you do get the Cultists instead, because they're kind of like complementary compositions, they borrow a lot of units from each other, you could just go for the Cultists instead. Onto the next build, we have Warlords. Warlords, it's like, you need perfect Katarina, and if you don't, it's hard to play. They did get a buff recently, this comp in the most recent patch, but it was kind of like a very minor buff. It was a buff to 1 and 2-star Katarina, and then a buff to 3-star Garen, but like, no one even plays Garen in the final comp unless you're going for 9 Warlords, but that's really hard to do because you need both Chosen Warlord and a Spatula for it, and that's often like kind of difficult to get. If you get a Spatula in this meta, I'd much rather go the Mage build instead of the Warlord build, for example. Onto the next build, Mage Elderwood. Just don't play this. Like, honestly, this should be in the C tier because there are just better options to do with Aurelion Soul carry or Xayah carry. But it's fine to play in the mid game to pivot out of later. And I guess like the build's still decent. They're just better options for the champions that you're using. So it's like, why are you doing this? You know, that's more of the issue there. Now onto Assassins, like if you get perfect Akali, it's same with the Katarina in Warlords. If you get the 3-star Katarina, you're going to be doing extremely well. If you get the 3-star Akali, you're going to be doing extremely well too. Not much else to say there. Now onto the C tier, don't play Zed yet. No one's really figured out how to play him yet, in my opinion. Like, I just haven't seen him anywhere, to be honest with you guys. And even though he's like, he might be good now, and even though like a bunch of other comps got nerfed, I still don't think he's like that great, you know? Like, they're just better things to go for. I hope they do buff him slightly so that he is viable again, even as like a worst case scenario. But right now, it's just like there are a billion other things better to play. Onto the next build, reroll Diana. Like, don't reroll Diana. Go for the Spirit Sharpshooter build instead. And then for reroll Nasus, he's just in the dumpster right now, so just ignore him. Now onto the items, we have the Carousel Priority. Glove, I think, is just the best item right now. It builds Hand of Justice, it builds Jeweled Gauntlet, it builds Last Whisper, it builds Quicksilver Sash. Worst case, late game, you get like a Shroud or a Trap Claw. Those are perfectly fine items, you know? And it's just, I just think it's the best. After that, Sword, if you go Slayers, if you go Aurelion Soul, Guardian Angel is going to be the best item. So you just need Sword for that. Not much else to say there. Bow for Kale and Olaf comps, Rod for just general good early game, Chain for Guardian Angel or Lockets, and then the rest of these items here, I kind of just tried to avoid them in the early carousel. And then onto the item quadrant, like I made a couple updates. I noticed that there are actually very few bad items now. It's really only Stoneplate and Ludens. Ludens is down because I feel like it's bugged right now because I've seen it played on Brand and a lot of times it only triggers once even though Brand casts twice. It's really, really weird. I don't know what it is. And like Brand's the only user of the Ludens item so far. I guess you could do like Mage Teemo. Maybe he can use Ludens really well, but that's a lot of requirements that we're getting into. But yeah, try to build the items on the top right. Those are generally going to be the items that fit in most of the compositions. And like Yeah, avoid the bottom left. And like in terms of the spatula items, it's kind of like all over the place. Like it just depends what comp you go. I honestly should just remove all the spatula items from this list because it's like if you're going the comp, the spatula item is going to be good. If you're not going the comp, spatula item is going to be bad. So I'm not even sure why I list them there. I'll probably take them out for the next set. But yeah, going back up to sum up everything, it's like try to go for the 4-cost carries right now or keepers if you can. Keepers, I love playing them. So if you ever get keeper chosen, just use it and like you get top 4 with GA Morello pretty much automatically and 2-star Kennen. You don't need anything more than that. It's just really, really good. I don't know what else to say. Kale, I find Kale to be a little hard to play because it's like a fine balance between like certain units and like certain items. I feel like it's higher skill cap to play Kale. That's why I tried to just go for Slayers or Aurelion Soul right now because they're just easier to play in my opinion. After that, like the A tiers, it's like, do you have the right chosens for them? Yes or no? And if you do, go for them. Kind of same for the B tier. Honestly, like this whole set, it's like, do you have the right chosen? Yes or no? And that kind of decides your composition, in addition to items, of course. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions on the meta snapshot for this week. Again, this was patch 11.6. I'm going to be posting my how to get to platinum video and how to get to diamond video sometime this week. This was all done on the Japanese server on a fresh account, and I do play Fortune, so we will go over how to play the Fortune build, and I also have a guide for the Mage Aurelion Soul build coming out soon, so definitely look out for that, and I will see you guys later.